Why should I want Mashiach otherwise? I want it to come from a positive place. And you know what? That's exactly the Rebbe's point. That's exactly the Rebbe's point. And I remember after Gimel Tammuz and before Gimel Tammuz, that was the whole talk, right? Jews always wanted Mashiach. What was the Rebbe's chiddush? And the answer was the Rebbe didn't want Mashiach because of tzoros. He wanted Mashiach, as the Rebbe would say, because Ben Shegolo Me'al Shulchan Aviv, a son who was exiled from his father's table, that's enough of a tragedy. You don't need anything more. And listen, there's two answers to your question, young lady. Answer number one, you gotta learn. There's no way you can want Mashiach unless you have tragedy without learning about Mashiach. And learning about Mashiach means pashut, understanding Mashiach. And I tell you, I'm coming out from yeshiva. So when I was in shul, the boys, every day, after daven, someone reads Hayom Yom, and another boy says, Yana Mashiach Agula. And it bothers me, because in Yana Mashiach Agula are all these rah-rah. You know, Mashiach's going to come, and we're going to have candy. Mashiach's going to come, we're going to have cookies. Mashiach's going to come, and we're going to have nice shoes. Mashiach's a limud, and it's an iyun. And no Gadol B'Yisrael in the history of the world gave us more of that limud than our rebbe. The Rebbe has studied the Rambam, just that alone. Besides for all the Chassidus and all the Kabbalah and all the other stuff, the Rebbe has studied the Rambam on Mashiach, word by word, not line by line, word by word. And these sichas are available, and you could learn them, right? The code word for these sichas is Dvar Malchus. But Dvar Malchus only has a few of the Rebbe sichas on Mashiach. I have a book I made. I mean, since people made much better books, I made a book that I never published, going through the Rebbe Zichas on Hilchos Mashiach. I taught it to Machon for years. It's one of the few things that I didn't put up on my website, but I have stuff on my website on Mashiach. If you want to want Mashiach, you got to learn about it. We don't have a lot of campaigns where the Rebbe said, in order to do this, you have to learn. When it comes to Mashiach, the Rebbe said, you have to learn. If you don't learn about Mashiach, Mashiach becomes a fairy tale. Becomes a nice dream. I believe in Mashiach, I have no idea what it means. And they have no idea how it has to do with reality. I live my life. Mashiach's going to come. This magical guy is going to come on a white horse with a big cape and is going to sweep us off our feet and make us fly on clouds and be wow. That's not Mashiach at all. And when you don't learn about Mashiach, you don't relate to Mashiach as a reality. You only want Mashiach when you have tzoros. And that's exactly what the Rebbe wants to dispel. We have to learn in Yonei Mashiach or Geula, and learn Yonei Geula Mashiach. There's two different studies, Mashiach or Geula, Geula Mashiach. They mean different things. They come together, of course. One is about a person and one is about an era. Mashiach is the person, Geula is an era. And we're getting both. It's very, very down to earth. Mashiach is a very understandable concept. But it's not going to happen if you don't learn. So this is what the Rebbe gave us as a mandate, to study Mashiach. And you don't have to study Mashiach from Tanakh. You don't study Mashiach from Gemara. You don't need to study Mashiach from Rambam. You have to study Mashiach from the Kutas Sichas Shal Nesidereinu. You could start Hilchos Melachim Perikei Aleph, the first words, and learn from there the entire two parakim, word by word, line by line, with the Sicha. And the more Sichas you learn, and I'm going to say something very un-Chassidish, and understand, Teire darf man lernen und Teire darf man verstehen. I used to teach ladies in 770, and I would come to class some days and say, please deposit your heart at the door and pick it up on the way out. You have to learn. You have to learn. And you have to understand. Don't get excited. Learn. The Rebbe Sichas and Mashiach explain to you what the Rambam is saying in such a way that Mashiach becomes a real person in the real world. He calls him Malchi Yisrael Lakshen. He calls him a king. We know what a king is. But you don't know what a king is, because kings in Torah are very different than kings in politics. What is a king in Torah? Where does his authority come from? What is his authority? What is his obligation? What does he need to do? And like I tell the kids all the time, I probably told this to you already, right? What is the one word that separates Mashiach from everybody else? Matzliach. Matzliach. Every Malchi Yisrael HaKosher does the same thing as Mashiach. Number one, the first job of a king, is to make the Jewish people feel safe. Pashut. Right? In the language of Tafshin Pei Dalet, to finish. Everyone's talking about hostages, and believe me, I am not callous towards hostages. The slogan is bring them home. My slogan is finish. 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 Because if we don't finish, we're going to have to fight this war again, and again, and again, and each time we fight it again, it's going to be more loss of life. The Arabs have a long-term plan. They'll die in their millions. They're going to destroy us unless we stop them. And we're not going to stop them by making ceasefires. We're going to stop them by humiliating them, by shaming them. And you do it once, you won't have to do it again. They'll all come with the television and say, okay, let's be friends. But so long as we're duking it out, that you will die. We don't mind dying, but we'll kill you. And we're going to get every Jew out of Israel. That's their plan. It's not complicated. Everybody knows it and everybody understands it. But then it doesn't feel good. It's not nice. Anyway, so the first job of a king, and there I go, the first job of a king is make Jews safe. It's his first obligation. Numero uno, make Jews safe. And number two, to strengthen Yiddishkeit. That's his job. To build a base, to make us frum. What makes Mashiach special is that he finishes. He finishes. He succeeds with Yidden and lyhadus with Goyim. But he's a person who fights battles, maybe not in the battlefield, but he fights certainly in the United Nations. Mashiach, the United Nations is going to condemn Mashiach once a week minimum when he shows up. And they're going to scream, the only thing what Mashiach is, he's not going to be like Bibi Netanyahu. He's going to do this. What? I didn't hear. What did he say? I didn't hear what he said. What did I say? I didn't hear. I have my thing. Mashiach is going to teach the whole world where the sky is. Mashiach teaches the whole world how killing a Rosh is a mitzvah and being a Rachman on a Rosh is an Aveda. He's going to teach people normalcy. And they're going to learn and listen and do. That's the whole Chiddush of Mashiach. Everything Torah says to Yid, the lyhadus, the Goyim, the Sheva, Mit, and the Nech, which has been there for thousands of years, Mashiach is going to make it happen. But you're not going to know this unless you learn it. If you're not going to learn this, you're not going to understand it. If you're not going to understand it, you're not going to relate to it. So Mashiach becomes October 7th. This is numero uno. This is the first thing you got to learn. You want Mashiach? We often want Mashiach. We're Lubavitchers. We're Lubavitchers. Lubavitchers live for Mashiach, but you can't live for Mashiach if you don't understand it. And the Rebbe said, it's one of the few mivtzoim that the Rebbe made, that the mivtza is to learn. Not to get up and shul and read a slogan, to learn and to understand. To understand. You can literally go through Hilchas Mashiach. I'll be happy to send anybody my book. It's sitting by me on a computer. It was never published. And you could see every halacha, one halacha with a sicha, another sicha, and you learn, and you try to understand. And if you learn and you understand, Mashiach will make sense. When Mashiach makes sense, two things will happen. Number one, you'll see how realistic it is. And number two, you'll see that you want it. Even though it's not a bubby. It's about being a good person and doing Torah mitzvahs. But that's the first thing. If a person wants to desire Mashiach, has to learn Mashiach. And then there's a number two. And the number two is something which I didn't get to. The school always wants me to talk about Vata Tetzaveh, Purim Cotton. To me, Vata Tetzaveh is Gimel Tammuz. But the Rebbe did give it out, Purim Cotton. Again, you all are the greatest, the brightest in Lubavitch. I really believe that. So I'm imagining you've all learned Vata Tetzaveh, probably more than once, from different teachers. And I'm sure every teacher has their own spin on Vata Tetzaveh. But when you learn Vata Tetzaveh, in my spin, and I'm just one teacher, there's so many key points. But the ultimate key point, what is the final key point of Vata Tetzaveh? The final key point of Vata Tetzaveh is V'yikhu elecha. V'yikhu elecha. The Rebbe asked at the end of the Maimed, if we're explaining the pasuk Achei Chassidus, the word V'yikhu elecha don't belong in the middle of the pasuk, they belong at the end of the pasuk. After you say Kosas Lamor, then the V'yikhu elecha, not before. So the Rebbe answers that Mashiach, Moshe Rabbeinu, the Rebbe the Nasi, can only be mashpia on Yidden to a certain extent by himself. He can only give Yidden one type of Kosas Lamor and not a higher type of Kosas Lamor. In order for Mashiach, for Moshe Rabbeinu, for the Rebbe the Nasi, to give the higher Madrega of Kosas Lamor to Yidden, it requires to be a shutif with Moshe Rabbeinu. When you become a partner, when you give your mind and heart to Moshe Rabbeinu, you help Moshe Rabbeinu do the V'yata Tetzaveh v'Kosas Lamor, specifically about this inyan of desiring Mashiach. You want to want Mashiach? Go on Shlichus. You want to want Mashiach? Dedicate your life, in whatever extent possible, official or unofficial, with a badge, without a badge, to being Makar of another Yid. Because in our partnering in the Rebbe's work, we get the koiches for Kosis Lamoir to desire Mashiach. Those are two distinct ideas, people. Two distinct ideas. But the question is very valid. I only want Mashiach when tzaddas happen, of course. That's how it always was. And the Rebbe is trying to change that. He wants us to want Mashiach not just because of tzaddas. And there are two key points that he gave us to do. Number one, we have to learn the Mashiach Agula. Why am I screaming at you? Why am I screaming? I do with Q&A with the Bacham on Thursday night, and I'm screaming. I said, I'm not screaming? Let me see if I can not scream by the girls also. We'll have to scream before I can talk softly, right? Why am I screaming? Number one, you have to learn the Mashiach Agula. And number two, you have to do Miftzayim. You have to Makar of another Yid. When you become a Shuttif with Moshe Rabbeinu, something happens to your neshama that allows you to relate to Mashiach as a real thing. So that's the job. Questions or comments? Talk loud and clear.
If the whole thing that wanting Mashiach shouldn't be because I'm sorry for that, it's going to be amazing when Mashiach comes. Why do you teach that to kids? Like the whole thing about Mashiach is like, oh, there's going to be candy on the trees. Like, that's not true.
Because the teachers are children. Because the teachers are children. And they're not only in nursery, they're in high school also. I don't understand it. Mashiach is taught so fantastically. It's taught like a fairy tale. That's not our Mashiach. It never was, never will be. What do I think? I think it depends how little the children are, but I certainly think girls in school should learn about the idea of Shleimus Atei Mitzvah. You ask the average boy and girl in Lubavitch, have you ever heard the word Shleimus Atei Mitzvah? He doesn't know what you're talking about. That's the Rebbe's Mashiach, the Mashiach of the Rambam. Mashiach is going to come and will be able to do all 630 mitzvahs. That's Mashiach. And they say, that's boring. It isn't boring if you study it enough. But it's so cheapified, it's so dilute, it's so incorrectly presented, and I don't know why. I think the reason is because the people teaching it never learned it themselves. There's so much on Mashiach in the Rebbe's Torah alone. In the Rebbe's Torah alone, just learn the Sichos and try and understand. The Rebbe gave us a very, very realistic Mashiach, a logical Mashiach, a religious Mashiach, an avodah-based Mashiach, not a sit back and relax and retire Mashiach. And we just replaced it with childishness. I don't have a good explanation for you. It bothers me. When every time a kid gets up in yeshiva and he says one of these slogans, teach halach and Rambam. Explain an idea. What does Kamayim Yom Echasa mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? What does the guards even Kevis? What do these things mean? Every one of the things is an idea that's real and logical and Torah. And it makes Mashiach real. And we've replaced it with something very simplistic. So somebody told me, because everybody's dumb, and I just have a hard time accepting that. I just don't accept that. I don't.
I guess it starts when we're teaching young ones, where you're supposed to teach it in an exciting manner.
You think? What would happen if you talk to children about the idea of people being good instead of candies? People not lying, people not cheating.
You do. That is I don't understand. Mashiach is it is such a beautiful fantasy.
But it's a fantasy that has everything to do with the most profane of the four-letter words. By the way, you interrupted, which is work, W-O-R-K. You know, the four-letter words are all dirty, right? The dirtiest of the four-letter words, especially in America, is work. Mashiach is all about avodah. It's not about retirement. I'm going to be better and you're going to be better. You're going to have more koyach not to listen to Yetzer Hara. You can teach that to little kids. And it'll be more meaningful to them, and they'll appreciate that there's something that they need to do instead of open their eyes wide and hearing a story like the stories in the books.
Will kids get excited about that?
They'll get more excited about it. They'll be able to understand how they play a role in it. The way Mashiach is portrayed is we're waiting for him. Is that what the Rebbe said to do, to wait for Mashiach? I'm asking you. I'm screaming again. The Rebbe said, Kabbalah's name is Mashiach Tzedkeinu B'Peil Mamish. Right? There's a big fight amongst the Shluchim. What's the Shlichus? But certainly, Kabbalah's name is Mashiach Tzedkeinu B'Peil Mamish is not put your hands under your feet and sit and wait. However you have to greet Mashiach and bring Mashiach and reveal Mashiach, it's a job. And it's a job that has to do with bringing light into the world, with making one more human being, one more yid do one more mitzvah, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one. It's avodah. And the lesson, the teaching, is, goodness and kindness, right? The Rebbe used to say in Hebrew, tzedek v'yesher, righteousness and fairness. In English, you would say goodness and kindness. That is an obligation on each person. It's not an obligation on Mashiach. It's an obligation on... The Rebbe spoke to Goyim when they came to interview him from CNN. We must increase in acts of goodness and kindness. That's the process. We forgot that. We forgot that. And that's why we don't want Mashiach, because we don't know what we want. It's our job to learn. It's our job to learn. It's our job to teach. And again, I'm a shameless self-promoter. I don't have as much as I should, but I have a lot of stuff on Mashiach, and I have enough on Mashiach. I did a syllabus for the Shluchos. It's up there, where I went through the halachas and Rambam. And if you listen to that series of classes, I don't know what it is, 8 or 10 classes, you'll have a sense of the Rebbe's sichos on Hilchos Malachim. It's very quick, because it could take hundreds of hours to learn that same syllabus, but you'll get a sense of what the Rebbe is trying to teach about the reality of Mashiach. It doesn't make Mashiach less, it makes Mashiach more. Because it's about us, it's about avodah. Anybody else want to speak? Go ahead, talk loud.
Looking forward to Mashiach because everyone's going to be good is a very practical thing, but looking forward to Mashiach because of Shlema Sarah Mitzvah, feels only practical.
Because of what?
Because of Shlema Sarah Mitzvah.
That's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. If you think about it, and you do something, not if you sit and wait, it's exactly the same thing. Can I explain it? The ultimate issue that is on everybody's mind and in everybody's heart, and I'm still brainwashed. I mean, I'm waiting to become an apokaitis, or everybody around me has. The Rebbe said to us, we're closest to Mashiach than ever. And what's the proof? That people in the world, Yidden and Goyim, are better and kinder than ever. There's more goodness in the world today than ever before. You're not going to get that from the newspaper. You're not going to get that in the mikvahs in Crown Heights. You're not going to get that where the women sit and gossip. You're going to get this version of a terrible world where the anti-Semitism is so much violence, so much anger. And frankly, if you look at the world objectively, I tell this to you all the time, and study history a little bit, you realize how false that is. There's a philosophy here. The philosophy is, if I may simplify, and this is a big simplification. It is a big simplification. But nevertheless, let's go with it. Human beings want to be good. Every one of us. At least most of us. Jews and non-Jews. It's hard. Why is it hard? Life. If I come to school and I'm not as smart as the next girl, if I come to school and I'm not as popular as the next girl, if I come to school and people make fun of me, I have to compensate for my disadvantages doing something else to find a space for myself in this world, and sooner or later we all get around to sin. Some people steal, some people lie, some people are violent. We all try to find a space for ourselves in this world. We want to do the right thing, but I can't. Why? Because nobody likes me. No one's going to give me a job, so I have to do something else. It's not like I don't care. It's hard. Now, the truth of the matter is, like it says in Tanya Pedikaveh, you're always wrong. I'm sorry. Everybody has to be a Benjamin, no matter how tough your Yetzer Hara is. But for some people, it's harder than others. Understand the idea that if every one of us had a little more koyach, we'd be a little better. Where does that koyach come from? That koyach comes from trying to be better. And trying again, and trying again. The Rebbe looks at our world and sees a world which is unprecedentedly good. The Rebbe knows how evil this world is more than you, better than you. But that's how he sees the coming of Mashiach. And our job is to make it even better. Teach Goyim Sheva Mitzvahs. This is not some kind of a fantasy. This is a real thing. I'm not allowed to scream, right? I want to tell you something, okay? You can spend the whole hour. I don't mind talking about Mashiach the whole period. I really, really don't mind. So if you're good, I'm good. Adin Steinsaltz, Adin Eben Yisrael, who's now passed away, wrote a book on the Rebbe. It's called My Rebbe. And that's exactly what it is. It's My Rebbe. It's not a book on the Rebbe, it's a book on Adin's Rebbe. Adin Eben Yisrael, if he had not been a Lubavitcher, would be a Gadol B'Yisrael. He was one of the greatest minds in the Jewish world today, maybe the greatest. He may have been a big Talmud Chacham than all the Mesnagdim Shel Yeshivas who said that Chassidim can't learn. He was a Gon Olam, an unbelievable genius, and he knew not just Torah, He knew physics and math and literature. The guy knew everything. He was an unbelievable genius. But he was a chassid of the Rebbe. He was a chassid of the Rebbe. And his matzeva, he said, write one thing. This is a man who wrote 256 books. 256 books in his 80 years. It's more than 3 books a year. It's unbelievable. That's all he wanted. That's who he was. He was a chassid. And he served. He was a giant. He was a giant of giants. So he has a book called My Rebbe. So the first chapter introduces you to the Rebbe. The second chapter is called Mashiach. Not the last chapter. Everybody puts a book and then you put Mashiach in the end, and then you have to apologize for the Mishachisten and the tunnels. We have Baruch Hashem, what to apologize for. Which is neither here nor there. Whatever. My opinion doesn't matter anyway. He puts Mashiach in the beginning of the book. You know why? You know why? Because Adin Even Yisrael, first he was a chassid. He was a chassid. He took the Rebbe for face value. The Rebbe says something, he means it. It's not just yippee-doo. It's not just let's have fun. But Adin Even Yisrael is so smart that he describes bringing Mashiach in Poshet, down to earth. Read the second chapter of his book. Just read his chapter Mashiach. How Mashiach is a very realistic thing. He describes the Rebbe as a practical man with a vision for making the world better, one person at a time. And he writes, just like now there's 5,000 shluchim, and 50 years ago there was one shliach, and you work, the same is true with Goyim. He describes the process of bringing Mashiach as a task which we need to do, and he presents you with an understanding of Mashiach as a realistic thing that we have to bring through good deeds. And if you read his book, you feel his frustration at the fact that people around him, that means us, have this fantasy idea about Mashiach. That ties in to Shlei B'Teirat Mitzvah. Shlei B'Teirat Mitzvah means what? Hashem had a plan for this earth. And part of that plan for this earth is that there is the holiest country and the holiest nation and the holiest truth. Eretz Yisrael, Am Yisrael, and Teres Yisrael. When Mashiach comes, those 3 things converge. All Yidden in the Holy Land, practically all Torah mitzvahs. It's the maximum goodness that the Eibishter gave us. But alongside them, there are 70 nations who were given 7 mitzvahs, which is much, much more than 7, to be honest. That as we do our mitzvahs, they do their mitzvahs, and they're concurrent, they're interdependent. It's a very, very logical progression. It's a very practical thing, but we have to do it. It doesn't happen. We have to do it, and the foundation of it is that the world is ready. Goyim are ready for us to teach them. We're busy reading the newspaper or listening to the most negative person in the world tell us, I'm telling you the COVID vaccine was made to kill 1 billion people. It's so childish. We're so caught up in negativity and fear. We're Lubavitch Chassidim. What's the Rebbe if not anything else? He's a positive man. He's the only person who looks at life and says, don't live out of fear. And we, Lubavitch Chassidim, have gone into this fear mode. Why? Because we lost our Chassidus. We lost our Chassidus. What's a Chassid? Huh? What's a Rebbe? The world is good. Make it better. So what's left of Mashiach is a dream. Yeah, one day Mashiach is going to come because the Rebbe promised. That's not what he says. That's not what the program is. We have to bring him. And the beginning of bringing him is in our own heads. Shleimus HaTorah Mitzvah has to do with people being better. That's a very, very important part of Mashiach. And it's the part that matters to us. It's the part that the Rebbe talked about. It's the part that we skip. Why? Because he told me in the mikveh that Trump is a dangerous guy. Or Trump is a tzaddik gomer. I don't know. Another, either Trump is great, Trump is terrible. Kula amale pliget, I'm a shugana. We can't decide if he's a good Michigan or a bad Mashiach. Bad Michigan. I remember when Trump was president, I had big arguments with people very close to myself. Very close to me, family members. I would say, Goy, don't get excited. I mean, Trump was elected to get Rabashkin out of jail, which is a big schos. But don't get excited. Trump's not Mashiach. He's a goy and he's a behema lakula. He happens to have a weakness towards Jews. A Yid has to know his place and he has to know his shlichus. I don't invest myself in Trump. You have to vote. But Trump is the Messiah? The Mashiach is a Yid, Mashiach is the Rebbe. Am I making sense? Is this a revelation, or do you know? You should know this. You should know this from the 7th grade. I don't have to teach it to you. But I find that a lot of our kids didn't get this message. And it bothers me. Any other question? I can talk about Mashiach forever. I'm not going to get bored. Don't worry about me. Go ahead.
It's more connected to something before. Is it better to call it October 7th because connecting it to Yom Tov isn't very good either?
You know, we call the Yom Kippur War the Yom Kippur War. And it makes you shake.
Call it the Yom Kippur War?
Of course you did. They never called it by the name of everybody else. You always say, was man ruft on Mohammed Sheishes Hayom. What's called by everybody, Sheishes Hayom. This is, you know, we're in the middle of a story, and I don't want to act like a prophet, not of doom and not of fantasy, but it's not by mistake that it happens in Chassidus.
If Mashiach is a time that it's about Mashiach in every place, then why are we saying that as response to the case passed away before we Mashiach right now? We need like why are we saying that? Why are we not deciding the time of a time of no hardship, of goodness, like how is that comfort?
I want to tell you a story. Right after Gimel Tammuz, I was teaching in 770. Mamash, we started the week of Gimel Tammuz, started giving classes in 770 to women. That summer, the classes were packed. So many people came. Everybody wanted to hear something. Over the years, that class was reduced to literally 2 or 3 ladies. But in the beginning, it was packed. Everybody came. And we talked, including some very important people who teach you. But you're talking now 32 years ago, 30 years ago, Tofshin and Dalit. So a woman asked me a question in a class. And I said to this lady, and there must have been 100 ladies there, is that a personal question or is it an academic question? Now she understood that if it was a personal question, I wouldn't answer it. So she said, no, it's an academic question. So I answered her. And she burst into tears. And she started to scream. She was so upset. And she came over after class and said, Rabbi, how could you say that? Of course it's a personal question. In other words, of course if you knew who I'm talking about, you'd fall down. A woman who's all brain. Of course it's a personal question. Now, in 1994, I was 33 years old. I was 28 years old. I was 28. What did I know? I was out of my pamper. I just got married. It was uncomfortable sitting in a room full of ladies. Most of them in the room older than me. So I ask a woman straight up, if this is a personal question, I'm not answering it. If it's an academic question, I will answer it. She tells me I answer it, she gets angry at me because it's a personal question. I'm supposed to know that. Now, I'm married long enough to know that the downside of being married to a woman is you have to know what they're thinking. If you don't know what a woman is thinking, that means you don't love them. That's the guy's side of the story. I always tell you the women's side of the story. I always put you guys up, but there's a guy's side to the story also. If a man can't guess what his wife is thinking, that means he doesn't love her. And guys are terrible guessers. They're dumb as a wall. Trust me. Tell a man straight what to do, he still doesn't hear, yeah? You give him riddles and hints, he's never going to guess right. That happened. And I had to apologize. I had to call him Mashbi. It became a whole pash. I have a very deep sense that you're asking a personal question. You're not asking an academic question.
Absolutely not. I mean, I think that the world is happens all the time in the world. And like
So first of all, it's a knee-jerk reaction. You just say it. It's not thought through. And second of all, when you say Mashiach is not consoling the tragedy that happened. Mashiach is saying that there's going to be a time that there won't be tragedy. The consolation is right now we live in a world, in the words of the Rebbe is speaking Yiddish, as an Adam misverständnis. There are things that happen that we can't understand. When something happens in this world, we believe in God. We really believe in God. It's not a game. We really believe that the Eibush is in charge. We believe in Hashgacha Pratis. If something happened, it wasn't a mistake, it wasn't an accident, it wasn't anti-Semitism, it wasn't terrorism, it was the Eibush. We can't understand. And when we can't understand, we cry, as we should. Mashiach is going to make a world where we're going to be able to understand. But it doesn't address this tragedy. It addresses the the sense of uncertainty. It addresses the sense of lack of safety that a person feels when tragic things happen. There's a video of a couple that came to the Rebbe by dollars. They had one son. By the way, if you want to know why you have a lot of kids, this is a reason. Not chas v'shalom that you're going to lose any of your children, but you should have a lot of kids. They had one son, and he was killed in a terrorist crash, a terrorist attack. Libya, Gaddafi, put a bomb on a plane, and it blew up over Lockerbie in England, and everybody on the plane died, including their son. Now they came to the Rebbe as a couple. They were not from people, but they were British, so they were more traditional than Americans. And I think they even spoke like a German Yiddish a little bit. They were elderly. You have to remember, it's 30 years ago, and they were probably in their late 60s. So they, so they remember the Holocaust, perhaps they remember even before. They remember a more traditional time. And they're talking to the Rebbe in a mixture of Yiddish and English. And they were introduced to the Rebbe. This is the parents of this and this boy who was killed in this tragic plane. It was 1986 or 87 when the plane was blown up. They came to the Rebbe probably in 1991. And the Rebbe says to them, what's the Rebbe supposed to say? I'm asking you a question. He's standing in line. There's hundreds of people. He has 30 seconds. What's he supposed to say? So the Rebbe says, Rebbe should help him. That going forward you should have only blessings. Now if you have one child and you lose him, there's no it's over. It's finished. You might as well be dead. I mean, it's a very, very dark place to be. But the Rebbe says to them, they shall help him that from now on you should have good experiences in your life, which is the only thing you could say. So the husband sort of walks away, and the wife says to the Rebbe, how could such a thing happen? So the Rebbe says to her, after what happened in the last generation, he's speaking in Yiddish, noch was ist getroffen in dem friedlichen Dor. Und derweiler hat der Eibischte noch nicht reagiert, kann man a Frage nicht fragen. Which means, after what happened in the previous generation, and so far Hashem has not reacted, there was no vengeance, he didn't punish anybody, we cannot ask such questions. That was the Rebbe's answer. We need to say it's beyond us. So she presses. But why? So the Rebbe says to her, Mashiach will come and things will start making sense. So she very cynically nods, Mashiach, right? That's the answer to all questions, Mashiach. But she was very bitter about it. She didn't accept the answer. I know a man who sat with them after this meeting with the Rebbe for hours and tried to give them some sense of what the Rebbe was saying to them. They were so hurt and so angry. I mean, what do they want from the Rebbe? But they felt like the Rebbe hurt them. What should the Rebbe have done? How are you supposed to answer such a question? You push, and you don't like the answer. What's the Rebbe supposed to say? And it went no place. It just didn't go any place. There are things we can't understand. So when you say Mashiach, you're not saying that a Mashiach comes to understand this. You say you'll live in a world where things will make more sense. That's a consolation. That's a consolation. And I may sound like a heretic. When I go be Menachem Babu people of tragedy, I don't talk about Mashiach. I talk about tragedy. Questions or comments? Go ahead.
That our suffering comes from pain because we don't understand it, and Mashiach will understand, we will have...
No, there won't be pain. Mashiach is a good world. Not a miracle world, a good world.
So it's not about understanding suffering, and that's why...
Not necessarily, no, it's a better world. It's a better world.
It won't be at all.
No, at all is a simplification. Until Tchias HaMesim, there's going to be, people are going to die after Mashiach comes. People are going to be born, people are going to die, but the suffering, the premature dying, and the accidents, Mashiach is going to be a better world. People are going to be better, so the environment is going to be better. So there'll be fewer tragedies.
Fewer? No.
I don't want to say none, I'm not an expert on the subject, but for sure fewer. Fewer tragedies. In other words, our lives are going to be more consistently good. I want you to understand something. And I've talked about this in previous classes. What were to happen if today everybody's life became perfect? Everybody's life. Everybody in this room had exactly what they wanted in all areas. What would happen to us? There's going to be jealousies. She has more and I have less. And the jealousy is going to talk into anger. And the anger is going to turn into violence. And we'll kill each other. The Eibishter gave us such a world. It's called Haflaga. And we blew it up. The day we learn how to be rich and not be jealous and kill each other, we'll be rich and not be jealous and kill each other. Appreciate this. Mashiach has to do with us. If Hashem could make us rich and we're going to remain normal and not cuckoo, He'll make us rich. But most people become rich, become nuts. Appreciate that. In other words, there is no one half. People do not take responsibility. If my life is good, and everything I have, and I still go to shul and daven, and I think Chassidus, and I serve the Eibishter will give it to me. Why doesn't He give it to me? Because it's almost predictable that we fail. Each time it makes us comfortable. Why? Because we don't take on that 4-letter word called avoida. The whole chiddush of Mashiach, it's shleira instead of our mitzvah. We're going to have what we need, and we're going to work. And it's the work which brings Him, and it's the work that's going to sustain Him. It's all about people. The chiddush of Mashiach is that we're going to get up in the morning and want to do the right thing, even though we could sleep in because we can afford it. It's so profound. It's so profound. It's so deep. It's so meaningful. It's so real. And it's so responsible. Do you understand? Any other questions? Okay, that was a lesson on Mashiach. Good topic.